Welcome to Sustainable Sailing.
This is a new series on low footprint sailing.
We'd like to put forward a proposal that when we look at retiring and sailing in a sustainable low footprint way, it benefits us in so many ways and actually is going to make that whole experience a lot better. So we've got 6 ways that we think low footprint sailing is better for us. And the first one is that it improves our own backyard.
And we've got just one example of that for this video. There'll be many more later in the series. The first is toilets. Yay! We love talking about toilets. But realistically, who wants to go swimming in a beautiful bay when you know that your own poop has been released into the same water?
And also, who wants the job of fixing the marine toilet when it goes wrong? There are lots of videos of people trying to fix their toilets and they put on layers and layers of PPE and they do complain about the smell. So it's not a pleasant job.
No. And then thinking about the time when you're doing the refit, we're not as young as we used to be.
I've said that before.
I've said that before. And the idea of getting up in the middle of the night and needing the loo and having to get dressed, go outside, climb down the ladder in the rain, and it's always a howling gale in the Menai Strait, to go to the loo is just disgusting. If you've only got a normal marine toilet, then that's your only option. Or I guess a bucket. Not very pleasant.
However, we've chosen to go down the composting toilet route, and the composting toilet can be put anywhere. It's self-contained, and although it can have an extraction fan attached, it doesn't need it. And while we're doing our refit, we can move it to the best place. We can refit the heads and still have an available loo. It makes no difference where we are. We use the same routine to service our toilet.
And it's easy to use. It's comfortable. It doesn't smell. Absolutely huge benefit to us for something that has a lower footprint.
And benefits everybody.
Yeah, toilets, very good. Another benefit of going for a low footprint set of options, which we really like, is that it costs us less. So it makes it all much more achievable and practical. And you can see that, for example, if you look at the way the price of solar is changing and going down and the price of diesel is always going up. You can see that the trend is really clear as to which is going to cost less. Also, the solar is all paid up front, so we can buy and install solar now while we're still in work and being paid, and then from then on, for the lifetime of those panels, the energy's free. We don't have to pay for it at all.
We feel that having a low footprint gives us more freedom, because if we are using mainly solar panels to get our energy, it comes in free, and we don't need to charge the batteries using an engine or a generator or have to go into a marina because we're worried about getting low batteries. So that gives us more freedom to move to where we want to be, to more, and not to be tied to being desperate to find places to charge up our batteries.
And I shared on our blog yesterday the fantastic story of a small boat that's gone right the way up to Alaska, fully solar powered, and so they didn't have to worry about where could they refuel.
Also, it is obvious, but we chose a sailing boat because sailing is essentially a low footprint means of propulsion. The wind is free. Okay, it's not always reliable, but when it's there, you're moving quite fast sometimes for nothing at all. You will find it more enjoyable and have greater freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. Another benefit of going for a low impact, low footprint way of setting up your boat is that it really sets you up ahead of time to protect you from regulation, and we see more and more regulation coming in. One of the ways in which we see those regulations is in the waste that you can put in the water. In Turkey, you now have to keep forms all the time to show what you are doing when you're emptying tanks, get them signed, and the Coast Guard can stop you at any point to inspect those forms. All these just keep coming in. Where can you anchor to avoid seagrass, etc. All the things that we're planning to lower the footprint of our boat just mean that these regulations either don't apply to us or they don't change what we're doing. We don't have to do something different when we're in a an area where you can't pump out waste because we're not pumping out waste. It really frees you from worrying about checking what are we allowed to do here, what are we allowed to do there.
We also feel that as a sailing boat, particularly with an electric motor, people in the area where you're visiting will feel that you're having less impact on their environment, and that will generally give you a better reception. So I think that puts us in a more positive relationship with the people that we visit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that will be true not just for the electric motor on the main boat, but also having an electric motor on the dinghy.
Another aspect where we think it's very positive is reducing the risks of blue water cruising, how low footprint choices can help protect us.
We've seen quite a high profile set of YouTube channels saying that the way to avoid risking blue water cruising is to get a very large and very fast multi-hull, be able to avoid bad weather. That is really a problem if that becomes the standard way of being safe at sea, because it completely prices us and so many other people out of any understanding that we could go cruising safely. But when you look into it and you look at those people who've been cruising for decades, they're very suspicious of the idea that you could ever get good enough weather forecasts and go fast enough to always avoid bad weather. You end up with that very expensive, very unsustainable route of ending up with a boat that is so geared around avoiding bad weather that it is less well prepared when it gets caught out. So the low footprint sustainable route ends up with a boat that's probably older, a more conservative design, one that was built at a time when they expected you to get caught in bad weather. There was no way to avoid it. The forecasts weren't good enough. You couldn't get the forecasts once you were at sea. And so actually you have the benefit of good forecasting. So you can be cautious about where you're sailing and when you're sailing, plan routes effectively. But when that doesn't quite work out and you get caught out in bad weather, you are in a boat that has been proven to be able to cope with it.
There's also the added advantage that if you have a low footprint boat, it probably won't look new, shiny and tempting for theft.
And very large.
So it won't look as though you're the wealthiest person in the anchorage, and you're less likely to have thieves attracted to your boat. So our last benefit for this video is less schedule pressure. Bear with us on this one. It's definitely a benefit. One of the most often expressed mistakes on YouTube videos that we've seen is people saying that they wish they hadn't agreed to meet people at a certain place at a certain time, because things happen when you're sailing. Bad weather comes in, something breaks and needs mending. It's very hard to sail to an accurate schedule, and it's tempting to stay a little bit longer in that beautiful anchorage and think, oh, it'll be all right, I can make up the distance by motoring. And then your motor fails you, or the weather is so bad that motoring is horribly uncomfortable. There are lots of things that can happen, but having a schedule can lead to you having to motor for hours on end, and we don't think that's fun. It's noisy, smelly and uncomfortable.
And expensive. So the odd thing about a low footprint set of options, such as we're considering or implementing with an electric motor and so on, is that everybody else thinks you're crazy and that it's impossible and that there's no way you can predict when you're going to get anywhere, because you won't have the range to be able to motor for days. And so suddenly everybody else takes the pressure off a bit, because they think it's impossible for you to manage to keep to a schedule, therefore they don't expect it. And suddenly you're a bit freer. So
sounds good to us.
So that we like that. So it's a kind of twisted way of getting a benefit from a low footprint way, until gradually people learn that electric motors are far more reliable than diesel. That's the end of this first video in the series looking at low footprint things related to sailing. We hope that you have seen with us that these are actually good. They're good for us as well as being good for the planet and other people.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up.